Hello and welcome back to Firestorm Games. In this video we'll be showing you how to assemble your Dark Imperium miniatures. Now this tutorial is aimed at beginners, however if you're an experienced modeler then there may also be some tips in there for you. Before we can begin assembling our miniatures we first need to gather a few items. First of all you'll need some clippers, some plastic glue, a hobby knife or hobby files, and finally the miniatures you wish to assemble. The first step in assembling your Dark Imperium miniatures is to open up the instruction booklet and find the miniature that you wish to assemble. Once found, take a look at the component numbers required to assemble your miniature, and then find these components on the sprue. Now we know the component numbers needed to assemble the miniature, we can now start removing them from the sprue. Now for this, you will need your hobby clippers. Hobby clippers such as these often have two sides to their blade, a flat and also a tapered side. When lining up the clippers with the sprue next to the component you need, I'd recommend lining up the flat side next to the component. By doing it this way around, it will result in a much cleaner and controlled cut. Continue cutting the component from the sprue until it is free. However, just be very careful when cutting it away from the sprue that you don't actually damage the component itself. Once the components have been removed from the sprue, before we can actually start assembling the miniature, we first need to clean up the component itself. On plastic kit miniatures such as these, you may find thin seams called mold lines running across the surface of the miniature. These are quite subtle at this stage, but they can be quite prominent once painted, so it's recommended that you remove these. This can be achieved in one of two ways. First of all, you could use a hobby knife pressed perpendicular against the surface and very lightly dragged across the surface. This will gently remove the mold line without damaging the component beneath. Alternatively, you could use a hobby file instead. Again, just press the hobby file against the surface of the mold line and gently rub it until the mold line is removed. Another area you may need to clean will be the tabs on the component itself, and this is where the component was joined to the sprue and it's just leftovers from when we clipped it off. This can be removed in one of two ways. First of all, you could use a hobby knife and gently cut away the remaining excess of the tab. Just remember to cut away from yourself and keep your fingers well out of the way of the blade. Again, as an alternative, you could file these down using a hobby file. Again, just place the surface of the hobby file so it's perpendicular to the surface you're actually filing down, and gently rub until the tab has been removed. Once all of your components have been removed from the sprue and cleaned, you can now start assembling your miniature. For this step, you will need some plastic glue. However, first of all, we want to dry fit our components to see where the joins are. Now dry fitting simply means taking the components without any glue and fitting them together. This will give you a good indication of where the joins between the components are and where you should apply the glue. Again, it's often worth referring to the instruction booklet, as this will give you the areas where contact is made in yellow. Once the glue has been applied, delicately push the components together and hold them there for a few seconds. When the glue starts to dry, you will feel a join and the components will be fixed together. When gluing plastic components, remember not to use too much glue, as when the seams are pressed together, it will squeeze out the side and may make a mess of some of the detailing on your miniature. Once you are happy that the components have dried, you can then start gluing in the other components until you have a completely assembled miniature. And there we have it, a quick and straightforward guide to assembling your plastic miniatures found in Dark Imperium. Now whilst we focus on miniatures from the Dark Imperium set in this video, you could apply the exact same techniques we've used in this tutorial to any other of your Warhammer 40k miniatures. However, remember that plastic glue only works on plastic miniatures. For metal and resin miniatures, you will need to use super glue. Now if you enjoyed this tutorial, please do let us know in the comments below, and also make sure you subscribe to be kept up to date with all of our future content. So all that's left to say is thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again on Firestorm Games.